Welcome back to Star Wars Shovelware. My name's Luke, and today I have another Dollar Deals episode for you. The series where I pick out 5 random games from the eShop, all of which go on sale frequently for only a few dollars, and then give them a play to see whether or not they're worth it despite the low asking price. Now, if you haven't checked out the previous episodes in this series, you'll find a link to the Dollar Deals playlist in the description box below, so go give them a watch as we've had some pretty decent titles so far. Today though, we've got quite the variety when it comes to genres, so drop a like if you enjoy this one, subscribe for more Dollar Deals as well as regular Switch game reviews, and let's get started. So we're kicking things off with a spot of retro action as we take a look at Odallus, The Dark Call, a title which is inspired by the classic Castlevania and Ghouls and Ghosts games, but puts its own spin on things with a few modern touches whilst still retaining the level of difficulty that these games are known for. The story with this one though, you play as an ex-soldier called Haggis who returns home from a hunt to find his village burnt to the ground, overrun by swaths of demonic looking creatures, and the town's chief transformed into a hideous monstrosity. After slaying the beast, he then obtains a mysterious shard, which presumably has something to do with all this bad business. Like I said though, gameplay takes heavy influence from the classic platformers of the 80s, and Odallus has some fantastic retro-inspired art and sound design which really captures the essence of these games while enhancing them for the modern era. Controls wise though, the game feels tight and responsive. It isn't quite as clunky as the NES generation of platformers, but it still retains the simplicity, giving you a single attack button, a secondary attack with which you can throw out various consumable weapons, you're able to duck, which is always a good thing, and you can jump and grab onto ledges, though I did find the ledge grabbing mechanics a little awkward to start with. Now, levels in the game are semi-open in the design, offering a number of different routes through them. You'll find a nice variety of enemies with a good mixture of ranged and melee, plenty of environmental hazards making for some solid platforming, and a few different secrets and puzzles to solve which often lead to additional items or even open up routes to new optional areas. And I've seen a few arguments as to whether or not this one is actually a Metroidvania title, but in my opinion it doesn't quite cut it, as it doesn't feature the large interconnected world maps that these games are known for. You do however obtain relics which grant you new abilities, and you're able to backtrack to previous levels using the world map to proceed through previously inaccessible areas, so in that sense it's kind of like a hybrid title. Overall though, I have to say, of what I played I was very impressed. The game is challenging but fair, with enough checkpoints dotted throughout the levels so that it doesn't become too frustrating. The game's bosses, of which I've fought 2, appear to be well put together with some clear attack patterns for you to master, and gameplay on the whole feels incredibly solid. It does retain a few frustrating limitations, mainly when it comes to the combat and lack of multi-directional attacks, but all in all it's a solid little throwback, and I especially enjoyed the additional puzzle elements and the quality of life improvements, such as the in-level shops and checkpoint system. If you're a fan of classic platformers though, this is definitely one that you should check out, as it plays and feels very similar to these OG titles, and the game goes on sale fortnightly for under $2. Our next title today then is going to be the rhythm game come beat 'em up, Terrorhythm, and I do love me a good rhythm game, so I was interested in seeing how this one actually played. The concept in Terrorhythm is simple though. In each of the game's tracks, enemies will proceed towards the player from the left and right hand sides of the screen. In order to defeat them, you just have to tap the R or L bumpers to attack in the relevant directions, but this all has to be done to the beat of the track, and attacks can only be performed when enemies enter your area of influence, seen as the highlighted area below your character. You're able to expand this area, boosting it with a tap of the B button, but this will then be reduced again each time you land a hit, and in order to maintain your combo meter you need to switch between attacking and boosting frequently. Now, the game's track list primarily consists of some heavy sounding electro tunes, and they generally clock in at around 130 to 140 beats per second in the early levels at least, which is not too bad for timing your button presses. But the main issue here is that the enemies don't actually adhere to any kind of timing, and instead appear entirely at random intervals and in random formations. So unlike other rhythm games I've played, you actually have no way of getting better at a track, and it's purely down to RNG. The enemies themselves though come in a few different varieties introduced to you as you work your way through the different tracks, and these include standard enemies which take a single hit to kill, bigger ones which take 2 hits to kill, shielded enemies, and annoying teleporting enemies which swap sides each time you hit them. And while I appreciated that alongside the random weapon pickups you can snag, these introduced a little more complexity to what are overall very simple gameplay mechanics, the fact that they're entirely at random only adds to the frustrating RNG aspects of the game, and I frequently found myself overrun by enemies and completely thrown off B due to there being no clear timings for me to follow. Now, the game is certainly not the worst rhythm game I've played, and it definitely has an air of uniqueness to it and a lot of good ideas going on. I just feel like the developer missed the mark a little with the rhythm mechanics, and I would have much preferred to have a set of structured levels rather than the randomness, which I actually suspect was down to the PC version allowing you to upload your own songs to play through. All in all though, gameplay is not bad, it's just a little frustrating, and if you're looking for a more traditional rhythm game you most certainly won't find it here, but it's experimental, it has some decent sounding tunes, and for a couple of dollars it may be worth dipping into if you're looking for something different to try out. Terrorhythm goes on sale every month for $1.99. So for our third tile I was feeling a bit of a puzzler and decided to take a look at Tumblestone, a game which markets itself as a new and unique spin on the match 3 genre, and in a way it is, though I do feel it takes a little influence from the magical drop games. Rather than the swapping and matching gameplay found in those tiles though, Tumblestone works a little differently, though its concept is nonetheless simple. Now, in each of the game's levels you're presented with a play area full of coloured blocks, and you simply need to clear the play area in order to complete the level. You do this though by selecting and collecting 3 blocks of the same colour at the top of the screen, at which point the blocks are then removed, and the levels are structured in a way that each level presents its own specific order in which the blocks must be removed, with wrong moves leading to blocks becoming inaccessible. If this happens, it's game over with you quickly able to restart a level, and so the game is really about forward planning, working out which blocks to take away and which blocks to save, and it actually gets quite tough even 20 or 30 levels in. There are a whole host of game modes with this one though, from a 300 level campaign mode which has you switching between characters and introduces new and challenging mechanics every 30 levels, to multiple arcade modes which test your speed as blocks slowly progress towards you or challenge your mastery of the game's modifiers, and there's also a local versus mode for up to 4 players, which includes a battle mode crowning the last man standing, and a puzzle race to see who can clear the blocks the fastest. Overall, while I do think that 300 levels is a little excessive, and by the time that I hit level 30 and saw my first new mechanics, I felt like I needed a bit of a break, there is a lot of content for your cash with this one, and the puzzle mechanics are easy to pick up but definitely hard to master, especially when it comes to the complexity of some of the layouts. If you're a fan of puzzle games though, it's definitely worth a look at, and the game is almost constantly on sale for under $2. Our penultimate game this week comes to us as a viewer suggestion from Somerset Banjo, so be sure to drop your own suggestions down below for a chance to have them featured in future episodes. Bit Orchard Animal Valley though is a Game Boy-esque 8-bit farming sim of sorts, which as the name suggests is reminiscent of games like Stardew Valley, only on a much smaller scale. And instead of managing a full farm, the only thing that you have to really worry about is tending to your orchard of apple trees, at least to start with. Now the game does start off at a relatively slow pace, with you having just a couple of apple seeds to your name, which you need to plant and then water daily, and a few weeds to whack to obtain some fibre and craft a scarecrow to keep the pesky birds off your apples. Soon though you'll have a full orchard with apples ripe for harvesting all over the shop, and through the sowing of seeds and selling of apples you'll eventually be able to open up larger plots of land, improve your house, and open up new routes to new locations. I'd say though that you definitely need to give this one time to get into the swing of things. You get a simple list of tasks you need to complete, which include planting trees, befriending the local rabbit and upgrading your house, but you'll eventually encounter new characters to help out, snag yourself a fishing rod to do a spot of angling with, and make your way into town where you can buy new clothing for your character. While it's nowhere near as grand or complex as your Stardew Valleys or Animal Crossings, it's still a pretty chill game and a fun one to pass the time with, and while repeatedly watering your plants and sleeping to get apples to spawn can seem a little tedious at first, once things open up the game feels a lot more enjoyable, and you are eventually able to craft sprinklers to take care of the watering, which frees up your time to explore and do other stuff. All in all though, a cute little title which keeps things simple, works perfectly well as a time filler game, and is regularly on sale for under $2. Just be sure to wait and buy the Ultimate Edition, as it's the same price and bundles in all the additional extras. So rounding off this week's list then we have the Hong Kong Massacre, an awesome little top-down twin-stick shooter which plays like a mixture of Hotline Miami and Stranglehold, with a hefty dose of John Woo to its storyline. And I had a blast playing through this one last year for a review, which you'll find linked down in the description box below. Now the story is your typical blood-soaked revenge mission, which sees an ex-cop single-handedly taking down the gang which killed his partner, and it's presented in a really cool format whereby the narrative jumps back and forth across a 4-day time period between the days leading up to the game's climatic ending and an interrogation room where our would-be hero is being questioned about them. Gameplay though is fast paced, action focused and almost non-stop from the get-go, and its 30-stage campaign mode takes you through drug dens and dingy alleyways to kitchens, chop shops and rooftops as you mow your way through legions of well-armed gang members using a variety of powerful firearms. The combat though is visceral and hard hitting, with your bullets shredding through anything in the path, including walls, doors and of course the bodies of your enemies. And just like Hotline Miami, it's a reasonably challenging game with one-shot kills, meaning that one false move can see you taking a bullet to the noggin and brain bread yourself. But thankfully, alongside your slides and dodge rolls which provide you with a good amount of iframes, you also have bullet time on your side, with you able to slow time to a crawl, allowing you to quickly pick off enemies with a few well-aimed shots. In addition to these, the stars that you earn from completing levels and challenges can also be spent on unlocking new weapons and upgrading your arsenal, improving things like fire rate, ammo capacity and your movement speed with them, and these unlocks are where a little bit of the replayability comes into effect with the game. I really did enjoy this one though, and while it does have a few issues when it comes to enemy AI and the game's boss battles, it's the level to level action which really shines through, especially when you string together kill after kill, dodging bullets and demolishing anything and everything in your path, and you generally just feel like a dual pistol wielding badass throughout the game. If you're looking for some high-octane action though, which keeps things simple but also has a reasonably decent storyline to accompany it, then you'll no doubt have a lot of fun with this one, and the game goes on sale every month for under $3. And so that about does it for another Dollar Deals episode. So what did you think of the lineup in this one, and will you be picking any of them up? I feel like there's a decent balance of intensity and calmness between these ones, but as always, let me know your thoughts down below, and don't forget to leave your own suggestions on games for future episodes. For now though, be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this one, subscribe to the channel for more in the series as well as weekly game reviews, and until next time, thanks once again for watching, take care, and game on.